Welcome, everybody. We'll get started on this month's meeting. I understand Andy is online. We've got everyone else here. So welcome to July 1st, our July Power Board meeting. Did everyone get a copy of the agenda and the other attachments?
Yes.
Okay, any questions, comments, concerns?
No.
Okay, I'm just looking for a motion.
I had a motion that we approve the agenda for July 1st.
And I'll second.
So Dick did the first and Mark did the second. Andy, would you start us on a vote?
Absolutely. Palmer, aye.
And Todd?
Spriggs, aye.
Mark?
Hauser, aye.
Dick?
Saunders, aye.
And Dinsmore, aye. Okay, thank you. Item number 2 is the approval of the minutes. Again, did everyone have a chance to get a copy of those? Any questions, comments?
I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
Which second do we want to go with?
We can go with Andy.
Okay, we'll go Todd did the first and Andy did the second. So Mark, would you start us on a vote?
Hauser, aye.
Dick?
Saunders, aye.
Andy?
Palmer, aye.
And Todd?
Spriggs, aye.
And Dinsmore, aye. Okay, thank you. We're going right along. So item number 3 is regular business, operations report and generation update. Rick?
Well, this meeting today should be fairly painless and hopefully fairly quick. But we'll take as much time as you want. Mostly just reporting items. We don't have any action ones on this meeting. The June peak was about 49.4 megawatts, which was about 3 megawatts less than June of last year. So I was wondering if yesterday we'd sneak in another peak, but actually it was on the 18th of June with the previous little hot spell that we set the peak for this year. So today's running a little ahead of that pace, so we might cross over 50 today would be my guess. But it still wouldn't hit our all-time peak. So, but along with that, the generators have been running since the last 3 or 4 days of May, basically every day, anywhere from 4 to about 10 hours a day, depending on temperature, pricing of gas and power. So, so far they've been running well. Of course, I hate to say that and probably get a text from Tyler that something went haywire, but so far it's been going good as far as the generation goes. Let me share my screen. The work at the Grapevine substation, and this is one of our, sorry about that. One of our bigger projects started last year, will continue through this current year. You can see over here the one transformer pad is poured at this time. It didn't have the outside walls, and just gives you an idea of how much rebar goes into that. More exciting pictures of rebar and concrete and forms, but anyway, I think it's interesting to see so as it progresses through the different parts of the process there. And then this is it's kind of in a weird place. I call it the west one. But the transformer will sit here and the regulator will sit on this smaller pad. But it's a lot of work that goes into those, and when it's all said and done, it doesn't look like much, but there is a lot of work. And this is them forming the other pad for that outside wall. This was the start of where will be the control building. There'll be some more pictures. They've started drilling some of the piers. In fact, they have the high side of one bay done. If you look real close, there's water down there, believe it or not, middle of the desert. About 5 feet down, we've been hitting water through this area.
So there's a spring somewhere.
That whole site, there's other, out of this corner out here, we had to put a drain for this basement over here, and it runs about a half of a garden hose all the time to keep the water out of there. So I guess that's where the cottonwood trees and the grapevines come from, is from that spring. This is that control building again, getting ready to start pouring the rebar that goes in it and the cable trench in the middle. Some of the piers have now been poured. And what they do with the water, it's kind of a slow seep, so they're able to, just before the concrete goes in, they're able to pump it out and then put the concrete in. Sometimes if the water comes in too fast, then you have to pump the concrete below the water line, and then it just pushes the water out when it comes up. But fortunately on this, it's pretty easy. It doesn't come in real fast. So these holes are about 9 feet deep and about 30 inches in diameter. And they got a pretty big drill rig up there, and they're able to drill it, they said, in about 20 minutes. And again, just more activity at the site. They're starting on the next group of foundations. So kind of a little beehive up there. And this one, you can see the water in the bottom. And that's about where we installed the drain in the roadway. So it was pretty much where we expected to find it. Again, some of the finished piers. So that's been coming along. They hope to have the foundations in by the end of next week. And then Bodec will then shift to conduit and ground grid and the control building work. So it's coming along good. Any questions? Okay. On the transmission lines that will feed this, we did get the drawings approved for the structures, and they've been sent back to the manufacturer. They indicated this week that the anchor bolts for I think there's 6 or 7 that will have foundations on. We should see those as early as about 5 to 6 weeks, and then the structures will probably be in the fall. But they haven't given us a firm date on when we'll start seeing structures. So that one's coming along well. This is a project that we had kind of started when Public Works widened the Red Hills Parkway. This is up by where Ahern, what is it now, United Rentals, is right here. And so that whole area has been on some direct buried cables for 40 years. The Canyon Breeze area, and then that little commercial. So when they did the road widening, we put in conduits. This was the last piece of the conduit that we put in. And during the summer, the one advantage of this, we can pull cable in this conduit without affecting any load because it's a new route, and eventually we'll be able to get a new feed into the area as a backup. Right now we're relying on that old direct buried cable, which at times has been problematic. So we're working on trying to improve that, and they've got the riser, and they set this new pole here, and there's like 3 or 4 poles that they'll replace as part of the project in this area. So AMI project, we're moving forward slowly but surely. Still working out some of the final kinks with the software. Todd was gracious enough to be our first guinea pig on a solar installation. And I think we've identified a couple things already, but as far as the display, to get the receive display, but we'll see they should be able to see both directions. And once we get the the app going, having the display will be less important because you'll be able to see it on the app on a daily basis. So we'll work with them, and they say they're getting close to where we could start deploying in a higher volume. So I hope so, because we're running out of the old Itron meters, at least residential ones. So they've been replacing some poles up in the Quail Ridge area. That's generally an older area that is always a good one to go to if they're needing some work. There's always poles up there to change out and improve the service in that area. So on the solar, we only had 2 more applications in June. So in April, we had the 13, and then May and June, we both just had 2 in each of the months. So that really varies quite a bit. And then we have sent our new and improved pole attachment policy to Lumen, Go Fiber, and TDS, and we took comments from all 3 companies. They wanted different things. On the ones that we were okay with, we combined them into a new one. There wasn't anything major from what you guys had approved. Sent it back to them, and we haven't heard anything back at this point. So this is the same charts that have been showing the last little while. So our wholesale power cost in, I blew it up too big. In May is the last bill we have, is down a little bit. And again, it's the bright green is what this year has been so far. And probably most importantly, the PCA still remains negative. So you can see we've went an entire year with a negative PCA, and it's running about just under 1.4 cents a kilowatt hour. And with the prices that we got last year here, I would expect that we'd stay similar to that for the foreseeable future. So, and we'd already talked a little bit about the KW peak for June. We're just slightly under last year. The rest of the months of the year have been higher than previous year. And because the meeting's on the 1st, we haven't been able to make it through some of the data. We normally report on the average usage per residential customer. So that's the same as what you saw last month. Any questions on PCA, load, anything like that? Okay, guess one of the more, I don't know that I would call it exciting, last Saturday we had a semi run over some equipment at the Harley-Davidson dealership and wiped out we call it a primary junction or a sectionalizer. And then they also did a really good number on the transformer. And so it blew oil everywhere. And it actually had a pretty good arc. It looked like when it pulled these bushings and broke them, then it caused a fault right here between the bushing and the case of the transformer. Fortunately, the primary cables weren't damaged and they were able to reuse them. The secondary were damaged. They taped this up temporarily. And then we'll coordinate a time with Harley-Davidson. They're not open on Mondays, so we'll probably do it on a Monday and have to replace the secondaries as well. So that's what it looks like in our yard when it's all said and done. And Sunday morning, they came in and made it look good again. Got them back in service. So that was, like I say, the biggest outage. I think other than that, it's been pretty quiet on the system, so, which is really good. So
that transformer looks a little bit exposed with no safety, no bollards.
I don't, and we could, it's been there for, I don't know how many years, and I honestly don't know what the guy was doing, because there's a delivery door here and a delivery door off to the right of the picture. I'm not sure how he got in that spot, but
Trucks seem to be very creative.
yeah. Yeah, so anyway, I'm guessing, but it'll probably be in the 25,000 plus range for their insurance claim to replace the damage and the time, so. It was be a pretty pricey oops for that trucking company, so. But fortunately, they said the driver was really nice. I mean, he stayed on scene. You'd be surprised at how many they just take off. So he stayed on scene, and so we've got the information. And gives Rachel something to do. She loves tracking down insurance stuff.
No.
Yeah, you'd be surprised if these seem to be magnets to cars and streetlights and stuff like that, so. Yeah. That's pretty much the report on, kind of the local. The rest would be for UAMPS related items. Any questions?
Have the fires affected anything?
No, we could probably touch on that. We did send out the one notice that, I don't know if you saw it on Facebook and on the city website. When Rocky Mountain, when temperatures, wind, and humidity get to certain points, they'll elevate if you hear on the news there where they have the red flag warning, they're gonna be elevating, and they have a public safety power shutoff policy. And it's unfortunate that they don't have a lot of clear communications of what part of the system they're looking at doing that. However, we were put on alert that it could happen. But in reality, I don't think we were really super close. The fire was probably more concerning if it would have turned and went west instead of north. And so we had lots of texts with Jeremy and deciding, unfortunately, I think some of the information that got out caused more anxiousness than was probably warranted. So I guess, I don't know if it's good news. If that were to happen, the entire county would be out. It isn't just one utility or another. And it's not load related at all. It's strictly a preventative fire, a method. So if you have high winds in an area that you could think may damage a line and it cause it to drop, if you shut it off and it drops, then you won't cause a fire. Even though, the line should be designed to withstand that. But it's a common practice now in the industry. You've probably seen it go on in California, Oregon, and other areas because of the tremendous liability that has been put back on some of the utilities. So they're ultra conservative on that, and it's outside of our control. And it's hard for people to, understand that. So anyway, I wouldn't be surprised at some point during the summer, we're gonna have another one of those warnings come out. And, it's just that time of year. Any questions on that? I mean, like I say, unfortunately, we can't do a whole lot about it other than and what we put in, what we sent out was people should be prepared. Have a little bit of water, food, a plan. If you have oxygen or other needs, you should have a plan just in case something happens. You hope it doesn't. Plan for the worst and hope for the best kind of thing. So, it's always a fine line of if something were to happen, they'd say, well, why didn't you let us know earlier? But at the same time, I think we caused a little bit of anxiousness that was probably a little more than what was needed, in my opinion. Others may disagree, so. But yeah, like I say, I fully expect at some point during the next 2-3 months that we'll have similar events. Just keep an eye on the temperature and wind are the main factors there. For UAMPS, probably one of the main things is if you're planning on and are able to attend the member conference in August, please let Rachel know so we can we can help you with airfare or motel reservations, those kind of things, or you can do it on your own and turn it in and get reimbursed. I don't remember the dates off the top of my head. And I would say if you can do it earlier because it books up and there's not a lot right around there. So and actually, if you could give Rachel a thumbs up or a thumbs down, that helps us not wonder. We'd love to have you there if you're able. Hopefully this time over there, it'll be what's it called? Palisades at Tahoe. It used to be the Squaw Valley Resort. Last time we were there 4 years ago, there were fires and you couldn't hardly see from me to Mike. I mean, it just felt like you were in a campfire for a few days. So hopefully, I'm excited to see the area without the smoke, hopefully. So anyway, if you would do that and like I say, just let Rachel know as soon as you can, one way or the other, then we can plan accordingly. Last month for Power Board, we recommend you recommended to the council to approve the resolution to move forward with the transformer upgrade for the Central St. George project. The council did approve that at last week's council meeting, so that's moving forward on the UAMPS level. So I had good support from both the Power Board and the council, and we will say it's a 5-year project, so it'll be pieces done over a fairly long period of time. The Nebo project is running well. That's the plant in Payson. And one of the things that, if you remember, goodness, it's probably been 6-8 months ago, we had the prepay resolution that came through this body as well as the council. The idea being there was a mechanism with bonding that allows us to save some money. I wish this was all a Washington savings, but this is the UAMP savings on these projects for April and May. May was the first one that we had the gas at Nebo. And so our proportionate savings would be, you know, if we're 10% in a project, we'd get 10% of that effectively. Or if we're 2%, we'll get 2%, whatever that is. So, but it's a, you know, pretty good chunk of change that, and it should, I think, stay in that 190 range over the life of that prepay. So that's a good thing. I say it took a long time coming. I know we presented it once and then they backed off and then we presented it again. We got it approved and then it took another 6 months for it to actually start to realize some savings. So it was good to see, and that affects the Twin Eagle is the gas for the Nebo project, the Red Mesa Solar, and Steel 1A and 1B, and we're in all 4 of those projects, so. The Veo plant, which is the heat recovery plant, I think I reported last month they had some issues with the generator and it was sent off for evaluation. Unfortunately, the damage was a little more than we'd hoped, and so it'll be like another 8 to 10 weeks before it gets back. And even then, it'll be somewhat of a Band-Aid. The next step, I think, in probably the next few years, we'll end up having to replace the generator part, not the turbine, but the generator. It's had issues almost from day one of various oil leaks and different things. So the project's looking at that, and we've asked them to come back and get us some pricing on a new generator from a different manufacturer, because we can get the same one, but it doesn't make sense to put the same one in that we've had problems with. So we're hoping we can, they were gonna clean up the old the generator we currently have and do some minor repairs on it, try to fix the oil leak, fix the fan. Hopefully it'll last long enough to bridge until we could get another one to replace it. Because again, they're probably 18 to 24 months out. So that was the decision of the PMC, was to use the existing one kind of as a bridge between. On the Government and Public Affairs project at UAMPS, I don't know if you guys saw, the Senate passed the latest and greatest big, beautiful bill act. And so UAMPS is looking at the impacts to that. It could have impacts to some of the geothermal and solar projects as far as any tax credits available to them. It sounds like there's some still in the bill. If it's started construction, I think in 26 and completed in 27, but if you're beyond that, then you can't get those credits. So that's going to have an impact on the cost of those projects. So they're monitoring that and trying to evaluate that. We've got our first grant report coming up for the Uri area, which is pretty minimal at this point. We've just started to look at materials we need and get those on order, but that'll be a every 3-month process that Rachel and I can look forward to giving a federal report. So the solar projects have been doing well. They're in the upper 40s, low 50s as far as pricing, and they produce well. Obviously, when the sun's shining and there's no clouds, it's interesting to see the difference between Red Mesa and the one up by Plymouth on the Utah-Idaho border. The Red Mesa seems to be more stable. The Utah-Idaho border, I think, has more clouds going across there. So you can see the output from those go up and down, more so than the one on the reservation. So on the new natural gas project in Millard County, they've identified, the owner's engineer, Burns and Mack, is working on the general arrangement drawings and layout and working on the assumptions to come back with a more definitive cost of power. They've identified the GSU, or generator step-up transformer, as probably the longest lead item right now. And so we did approve a motion in the UAMPS meetings that we could start ordering some of that long lead time items that affect the in-service date. So it's progressing. There's still transmission study work to be done, and so it's finding that balance. When do you order that stuff if you don't have all the certainties of the end price and the transmission interconnection price. So trying to balance that as best we can and keeping risks as low as possible. And really the Power County, the one up in Idaho that's more the base load, it has a lot of the same similar issues. One good news to report on that is UMPA, Utah Municipal Power Authority, which is a similar organization to UAMPS that has 6 members. They did approve participating in the project, so they'll be a partner with UAMPS. And again, it's a little further behind on the engineering side because it took a while to get that going, but they're starting to do the same things on that project. So we'll have the same kind of issues, placing orders for the long lead time items and those kind of things. On some of the future projects that we could potentially participate in, there's a couple geothermal projects we've talked about, and again, what comes out of that bill and ultimately it may get passed at the House could affect how that looks, depending on if they're able to get some of the tax credits or not. That can have a pretty significant impact on the cost of power. And if you can outguess all the tariff stuff right now, more power to you. Which also leads into the Fremont Solar one is probably the most likely at this point to move forward, because it's further along the path that could probably meet those deadlines that they put in the bill to be in service. And so they're working on the final term sheets, and once we get through that, we'd bring that back to this body as well as the council there. And then we had a 2-hour session on the extended day ahead market, EDAM, and the impacts that that'll have. Gradually starting to get our heads around it. A lot of moving pieces. So, and that'll be, I think, one of the topics at the conference, as well as the all power requirements projects that's being considered. They're hoping, I think, to have a presentation on that would help provide information on that going forward. So as far as, I think it was 2 months ago, we talked a little bit about that all power requirements. And I think this body, as well as UAMPS board in general and similar bodies, felt that the medium option was the best way to go. And so UAMPS is working on trying to put some details to that we could, and we've asked them to come back with some talking points that I could present in a little more cohesive manner to see if that's something we'd want to pursue as Washington. So, and like everything, there's pros and cons to do it. And then we just got to outweigh which one's better. Probably one of the bigger concerns I have on that is it's pretty much a commitment and change in philosophy from almost here on out. It's not an easy thing to get out of if we chose to go down that road, just because of the complexities of how it's organized. So that'll be some of the stuff that we'll talk about. And, is the simplicity worth some of the change in autonomy on an individual basis? So that's pretty much, I guess on the CFPP closeout, Mason said they had some really good meetings at DOE back in DC with DOE and NuScale. So I think we're making some good progress there as far as being able to close that out officially. There's not a lot going on the only effort is to try to close it out at this point. So, but that was more progress than has been made in the previous several months. So they felt good about it. So And that's really all I have unless you've got questions for me.
I noticed under the Board of Directors meeting that they selected a mascot.
Oh,
Does
didn't
that
I
mean you
show
got-
you that?
Do you get to wear a costume or something? Watson.
Watson, and you probably missed the meeting where we brought in the,
Yeah.
and actually I've got a little banner thing out in the truck that,
I thought maybe, you know, if
It's a-
you're on the board, you'd have to
I'm trying to think.
go to the meetings, you know.
No, I'm not wearing a costume. And I can't think of an email. Let me look. Let me see if I can find one from Rhonda. But it's a little light bulb guy. And we had one of our linemen put in Illuminate, and I think it came in third place, so, of the names.
Watson's not a bad
Because you'd get this cutout of him, was the prize. Let's see if I can, there he is. Oops. Come on, he won't move up more on me. Oh no. Anyway, that's what he looks like.
miniature superhero.
So that's Watson. And would be available that, you know, we could put the city logo and different things, the graphics and whatnot. So, actually, Rachel, you should have brought that. Yeah, tell them what we're gonna do with that.
Metal.
I got the stickers. You can have your own Watson.
Ooh. I was kind of hoping to take a photo of you in the costume.
Well, you're gonna have to hope a long time for that, Dick. So anyway, it was a couple ideas that the crews have commented at times, you know, they'll have kids watch them and take an interest, so, you know, there's some little trinket that we can give to them to maybe get them thinking, hey, maybe I wanna do that someday. Okay, that's all I got, unless you got questions.
Wow. Short meeting.
Any questions?
Just looking forward to the convention. Should be fun.
Have
Oh,
they-
and next month, we do not have Power Board.
Okay.
I'll be thinking of you from Alaska, so.
Sure you
Just
will.
rub it in there. Do they have the agenda out yet, or?
Yes. It's in that,
I guess I did
Link?
see, yes, you did. I just kind
for,
of,
for the conference?
yeah, for the conference.
Yeah, if you go to that link, one of the tabs at the top will be the agenda.
Okay. So we can look at that. Okay. Okay, if there's no questions, I'm just looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
So Mark did the first and Dick did the second. Todd, would you start us?
Spriggs, aye.
Andy,
Yep, Palmer, aye.
and then Dick,
Saunders, aye.
Mark,
Hauser, aye.
Dinsmore, aye. Okay, so if we are not meeting in August, the next meeting will be September 2nd. So make sure, mark your calendars, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot about the conference then.
Yeah, in fact, we'll probably have those that go give a little report.
Oh, that'll be exciting to hear from you, Todd.
Yeah.
Take good notes.
That's not to discourage you from going.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining us and have a great day, great evening.